I still remember the moment that cut through me like glass. My daughter, my own flesh and blood, looked me in the eyes and said, "I wish my stepmother was my real mom, not you." It was at her birthday party, surrounded by our family and friends. The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp, and for the first time, I felt invisible in my own daughter's life. I had raised her alone for the first 12 years of her life, juggling jobs, bills, and late night homework help. Every scraped knee, every tear, every triumph, I had been there. And yet here was this young girl, already swayed by someone new, someone who hadn't shared the sleepless nights or the small victories that had defined us. My ex-husband's new wife, glamorous, poised, endlessly charming, had moved into our lives, and suddenly, she had my daughter wrapped around her finger. At first, it was little things. She let my daughter stay up late, gave her expensive gadgets I couldn't afford, and cheered for every minor whim. I tried to stay patient, explaining rules, consequences, and respect. But my daughter, blinded by the shiny world her stepmother offered, began to pull away. She started skipping my calls, avoiding visits, and siding with her stepmother at every argument. Even her laughter in my presence felt strained, like a mirror reflecting someone I no longer recognized. The first major break happened at the school talent show. I had spent weeks helping her rehearse, sewing her costume, staying up late to make sure every detail was perfect. But when she stepped onto that stage, she held her stepmother's hand and waved at me politely, the warmth of our bond replaced by a public display of allegiance to the woman I had barely met. The applause that followed her performance seemed to drown out my own heartbeat, leaving only a hollow ache in its wake. Back home, the tension grew unbearable. She would whisper about how wonderful her stepmother was, how I was too strict or boring, and I found myself silently bearing the hurt. Each comment, each slight, each choice she made to turn away from me felt like a betrayal. I tried to reason, to explain, to reach her heart, but it was like speaking into a storm that had already chosen its course. And yet, despite the pain, I refused to step back. I refused to give up. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every tough conversation was part of a plan I could not yet reveal. Not because I was stubborn, but because I knew that one day, the truth would matter more than the glittering illusion her stepmother painted. But even as I told myself that, I couldn't ignore the growing fear that maybe I had already lost her, that maybe my daughter's love was slipping away. One compliment, one gift, one favor at a time. And for the first time, I wondered, could love alone be enough to bring her back? Or had I already been outmaneuvered by a woman who had stepped into my life like a thief in the night? After the birthday party, the distance between us grew wider. My daughter no longer called me first with her news or her worries. The stepmother had become her confidant, her advisor, her ally. Every weekend I tried to spend time with her. I felt invisible, a shadow hovering on the edges of their laughter. It wasn't just jealousy, it was fear. I feared that my daughter would never see the truth, that she would be lost to a woman who had cleverly rewritten our story. At school, things started to unravel. I began hearing from teachers about small incidents the stepmother had ignored, or worse, encouraged. My daughter came home talking about how she was allowed to bend the rules with her stepmother, to manipulate situations to get what she wanted. I saw glimpses of arrogance I hadn't raised, lessons in entitlement taught by the woman who claimed to care for her. I realized that behind the gifts and the attention, the stepmother was building a version of my daughter that served her own image, not my child's growth or happiness. The first major shock came when my daughter faced a serious problem at school. A rumor spread, and instead of guiding her through the fallout, the stepmother laughed it off, warning her to just keep smiling and let others handle it. My daughter turned to me in tears that night, afraid and confused, but afraid to fully trust me. I held her, whispered truths, and reminded her who had always been in her corner. Slowly, I started planting seeds, subtle reminders of the sacrifices I had made, the love I had poured into her life when no one else would. At home, I began documenting small but telling moments, how the stepmother never asked about homework, about friends, about her fears, how she only intervened to make herself look good. Every skipped chore, every unnoticed struggle, every favor demanded without gratitude. I recorded it in my mind, knowing that one day my daughter would need to see the reality behind the illusion. Yet, even as I prepared for the day she might open her eyes, I faced new trials. Arguments erupted, sharp words exchanged. My daughter accused me of being jealous, of trying to sabotage her relationship with the stepmother. Each accusation cut, but I stayed silent, listening, guiding, loving from behind the curtain, because I knew one thing: truth, when revealed at the right time, has a power no lies or charm can match. The tension built like a storm. My daughter was halfway caught in two worlds: one bright, glamorous, and misleading, the other quiet, demanding, but real. I had no idea how much longer the stepmother could keep her grip, but I knew the moment would come when my daughter would see clearly, and when it did, the consequences would be irreversible. It happened sooner than I expected. One afternoon, my daughter called me in tears, her voice trembling. The stepmother had promised to help with a school project, but instead, she had handed it off to someone else, taking credit for my daughter's work in front of teachers and classmates. My daughter was humiliated, shocked, and confused. For the first time, she looked to me, not the stepmother, for comfort. I held her close, letting her cry, letting her voice all the hurt she had bottled up. I didn't chastise her for trusting the wrong person. I simply reminded her of the countless nights I had stayed up helping with homework, the meals I had prepared when she came home exhausted, the sacrifices I had silently made to keep her safe, to keep her happy. Slowly, the pieces began to fall into place in her mind. The next weeks were hard. My daughter began noticing the stepmother's true colors, the way she manipulated friends, undermined teachers, and only cared about appearances. She saw how often I had been there, even when she pushed me away, even when her words had wounded me. Every small act of love I had shown now shone like a beacon against the stepmother's empty gestures. The turning point came one evening when my daughter, tears streaming down her face, hugged me tightly and whispered, "I'm so sorry, Mom. I didn't see it before. You've always been the one who truly loves me." That moment, raw and unguarded, wiped away months of pain. Her apology was more than words. It was recognition, understanding, and trust rebuilt. Finally, the day arrived when my daughter confronted the stepmother herself. Calm, composed, yet firm, she told her, "I see now who really cares about me. I choose my real mom, and I won't let anyone twist that again." It was a vindication that rang through our lives like a bell. Justice without cruelty, love rewarded, truth exposed. We sat together that night, mother and daughter, laughing softly, sharing stories, and planning our future without fear or distraction. The stepmother's hold had broken, not through argument or confrontation, but through time, sacrifice, and the undeniable power of real love. And in that quiet, victorious moment, I realized that no gift, no charm, no illusion could ever match what we had built together: the bond of trust, loyalty, and unconditional love. My daughter had returned, not because I had demanded it, but because she had finally seen the truth. And that truth, more than anything, was worth every sleepless night and every tear I had shed along the way.